right there.
Okay, very good.
That's a little over 7 feet, probably right at 7 or 7'2" or something.
You said it was leaning down like this and came up and kind of looked at you like that?
The next thing I heard was this. About 2 seconds later, "Ah!"
The most haunting encounters aren't found in books or campfire tales. They're lived by ordinary people who never went looking for the unknown. From a shadow crossing Utah's Bald Mountain, to eerie double whoops in the Bridgewater Triangle, to a turkey hunter who abandoned his blind forever, these encounters share one chilling truth. Something is out there, something that hides, watches, and sometimes steps into our world just long enough to remind us we are not alone. Sometimes, the strangest encounters don't happen deep in remote jungles or on faraway continents. Sometimes, they happen right in the open, in places where no one should be and no one could be, except something. It was a clear summer day on Bald Mountain, Utah. A man and his wife were climbing far from the main trail, probably a quarter-mile away from the nearest established route. The silence was heavy, broken only by the crunch of boots on rock. They were alone out there, or so they thought. Then, they saw it.
Moosehorn Bigfoot-like creature running river bottom on Bald Mountain. Blaine writes RMSO. I have a video from the Uintas. I suspect it's a person, but it was a wild sighting. I was rock climbing on Bald Mountain, probably a quarter-mile from the trail system.
Far across the meadow, maybe a quarter-mile away, stood a figure, bipedal, pitch black, not coming from the direction of any trail, not leaving toward one either. It was simply there, in a place few would dare to tread. At first they were stunned into silence. The shape was too far away to see hair, too far to make out any facial details. But its outline was unmistakable, upright, broad-shouldered, moving with an ease no hiker could manage in such steep terrain. And then, something about its behavior made their stomachs drop. It hid. The figure stepped behind a massive boulder and remained there for several minutes, motionless. The man later admitted that the stillness is what got to him the most. People don't behave like that. They don't freeze for minutes on end, watching, waiting. This figure seemed to know it had been spotted, and its first instinct was to conceal itself. The couple finally pulled out a phone and began filming. Though the distance made the footage grainy and pixelated, you can still see the dark figure, crouched and waiting. When it moved, it crossed the clearing with incredible speed, covering open ground far faster than a person should. BA is where the witness stood. BF marks where the being was spotted.
It did not come from the direction of a known trail system or leave in the direction of a trail system. This area is somewhat near the road and an overlook pull-off, but the land is steep in this area. It was definitely bipedal and did not appear to be wearing a backpack. It appeared totally black, but was too far away to see any hair.
As RMSO later explained, the location is near a road and some campgrounds, but with no established trails leading into that section of the mountain. Both sides of the meadow are steep, rugged, and not the kind of place you'd casually hike through in heavy clothing. Yet here was this figure, dark from head to toe, moving across the river bottom with ease. RMSO's Blaine reviewed the video, enlarging it by 300%, but the distance kept the details blurry. The behavior, he said, was wilder than the appearance. Hiding behind a boulder when it knew it was being observed, that's exactly what Bigfoot is known to do.
My wife and I both saw this. She filmed it with her iPhone. RMSO responds, I am familiar with this area. If that is a person dressed head to toe in a dark outfit, they are running really fast to cover that much ground. I enlarged the video by 200%. Unfortunately, the subject is so far away, it is really pixelated.
He also noted that this wasn't the first report from Bald Mountain. In the last 5 years, at least 2 other sightings had been reported, both by campers at the base of the peak. Each described a large, dark figure crossing open areas before disappearing into cover. The witness and his wife watched it for about 5 minutes in total, too shocked at first to even think of filming. It seemed to become aware of us at the same time we saw it, the man explained. Then it became very still, like it was trying to hide.
Yeah, cell phones were not designed for that distance. Honestly, the behavior was wilder than the appearance. It just didn't act like a human. He was visible for about 5 minutes. At first, we were kind of dumbfounded by it and didn't think about getting out the camera.
It didn't act like a human. They never had the chance to explore the meadow before leaving. But they marked the location carefully, describing the exact boulder where the creature hid. RMSO plans to return to investigate, hoping to find tracks in the softer earth near the dry stream. For now, the footage stands as another strange piece in Utah's puzzle. A shadow on Bald Mountain that moved too fast, hid too deliberately, and left behind nothing but questions. Courtesy, Destination America. Deep in the heart of central Kentucky, on the edge of the Appalachian wilderness, the Mountain Monsters team sets out to confront a mystery that has haunted this region for weeks. Locals call it the Midnight Whistler, a creature that cries out in the dead of night, its eerie calls echoing across the hollers and ridgelines. Armed with rifles and experience, the team pushes into the darkened woods. It doesn't take long before they stumble onto their first piece of evidence. 3 massive logs lie perfectly balanced in the crook of a tree. They're not just fallen branches, they've been placed there deliberately. How would a man even do this? The logs are heavy, awkward, and far too high off the ground for this to be the work of chance. Then they notice something else. Deep scratches on the trunk of the same tree. "This is a back scratcher," Jeff mutters, running his hand over the grooves. "That thing's been rubbing its back right here." The mood shifts from curiosity to awe. This isn't random. This is territory. A mark. A warning. But then something unexpected happens. Jeff suddenly goes pale. He stumbles, his face distant and unfocused, like he's somewhere far away. "You all right?" one of the team asks, rushing toward him. Jeff opens his mouth to respond, but instead he collapses. The team drops everything, gathering around him. His breathing is shallow, his skin clammy. Whatever this was, heat, stress, fear, it hits hard. The call is made. The hunt stops, at least for now.
"This is a Bigfoot, marking his territory. Finding this marker was a huge piece of information that we needed. The last time we was here, whenever we started finding Bigfoot sign, the woman of the woods showed up. If there's a Bigfoot out here, and it's the Raven Mocker, we know the woman of the woods isn't far behind."
Night falls over the Kentucky hills. The forest becomes a cathedral of silence. It's time to go back. The men regroup, their guns loaded, their gear ready. They climb up to the ridgeline above the cabin where witnesses reported hearing the whistler for 3 straight weeks. The mood lightens briefly with jokes and banter, a nervous attempt to shake off the tension. But as soon as the investigation starts, that uneasy silence returns.
Right here tonight is where we're going to start the investigation to prove that Bigfoot exists in the Appalachia. We're right up on the ridge line above the cabin where our first eyewitnesses have heard this midnight whistler for the last 3 weeks. So we're in the perfect place to start this night investigation. We don't even have a rookie on the team now.
Thermal cameras sweep the darkness, scanning for heat signatures. Nothing. The forest feels still, too still. Then a sound, a knock, sharp, deliberate, from somewhere to their left. They freeze. Remembering their witnesses' claim that the creature is drawn to harmonica music, one of the men pulls out a harmonica and begins to play. The soft, reedy notes drift through the trees, haunting in the quiet night.
As long as there's been man in central Kentucky, there's been sightings of Bigfoot right here.
Grass is pretty beat down through here.
Right here will be the starting place to prove that Bigfoot is fact, not fiction. Tonight we're going to be looking for anything out of the normal. We're also going to be looking for those glowing green eyes, that high-pitched whistle.
No movement shows on the thermal, but then another knock, and another. The team exchanges looks. They know the difference between random forest noise and communication. This feels like the latter. They move forward, tracking the sound. The leaves underfoot are freshly disturbed, a trail leading deeper into the woods. And then they find it. A nest, huge, built of broken branches and woven leaves. It's not just a pile of debris. It's a structure, deliberate and organized. The team stands in stunned silence, taking it all in. The realization hangs heavy in the night air. They aren't just chasing a phantom. They are standing inside its home range. Somewhere in the dark, the midnight whistler is listening. The men steel themselves. The investigation isn't over. In fact, it's only just begun. Nestled in the remote wilderness of Montgomery County, North Carolina, lies the El Dorado Outpost, a rugged waypoint for hunters, hikers, and those who dare to venture into the 50,000 acres of the Uwharrie National Forest. But for one man, this is far more than a stop on the map. Michael Green, soldier, investigator, forgery expert, and ski patroller, transformed himself into one of the most dedicated Bigfoot hunters in America. Green's resume reads like a man who lived a life grounded in discipline and reality. A former Army tank commander, the state of New Jersey's chief welfare fraud investigator, a national ski patroller. He was not the kind of man who bent easily to fantasy.
Best night of my life, I guess.
Michael Green believes he's perfect for the job.
I'll be unabashedly stupid and say, yeah, I really do have the right credentials for this.
Green has a resume of a realist, Army tank commander, chief welfare fraud investigator for the state of New Jersey, forgery expert, national ski patroller, now a Bigfoot believer.
And yet something happened here that changed him forever. It began at a simple camp table one night, surrounded by friends. The fire was low, the night alive with the usual sounds of the forest, until something stepped just beyond the light. Green caught a glimpse, just a silhouette in the dark. He didn't have his camera rolling. The moment slipped through his fingers, leaving him with nothing but the memory and a gnawing determination to return. And in return, he did, every week. Green outfitted a Bigfoot mobile, a field unit with a cot, monitors, and multiple cameras. He baited the area with candy bars and snacks, waiting for the night when his visitor would come back.
Where you saw him.
This is where I saw him.
Green took us to the spot where he had his first encounter. He was at the camp table with friends when he saw something in the woods.
The next thing I heard was this. About 2 seconds later, right over my tent. Ah! Ah! And that's not nearly as loud as it was. Scared the devil out of me, as you can imagine.
That night finally came in 2009. The grainy footage is still one of the most talked about clips to ever come out of North Carolina. In the quiet glow of the camera, a figure appears, tall, broad, and pale. It reaches into the camp, grabs the candy bar, and retreats into the dark woods. Even the local game warden, a man who knows every creature that walks these forests, was left scratching his head. Sitting back at the outpost, Green faced the question he always knew was coming. What about the people who say you're crazy? Green didn't flinch.
No, I don't. I know what I saw. Of course, I don't blame them for thinking I'm crazy. But by God, I'm going to prove it one way or another.
No, I don't care, he said, his voice steady. I know what I saw, and I'm going to prove it one way or another. It was never just a hunt for him. It was a mission, one that he carried until his very last days. Footage, courtesy, A Flash of Beauty, Paranormal Bigfoot. The Pacific Northwest has always been a landscape wrapped in mystery. The dense forests, towering peaks, and endless valleys of Washington state conceal secrets that science has yet to explain. And sometimes, those secrets reveal themselves not with a roar, but in something as subtle as a shadow, a flicker, or the silent fall of debris. September 11, 2014, north of Mount Rainier National Park. This is where a group of campers captured something strange on camera. Something that has left both witnesses and scientists questioning the limits of what we think we know about Sasquatch. We begin with Eric Bard, principal investigator and chief scientist. As he reviews the footage, his voice carries the tension of someone seeing the impossible. "I'd love to walk through this organically," he says. "I see something moving. It almost looked like plant material falling down." "Okay, so what did I just see? Oh my goodness." What Bard is reacting to is the original, unedited video from the campers. In it, you can clearly see a log being struck and broken with tremendous force. Not by wind, not by chance. Something strong did this. Something fast, powerful, and deliberate. And then, in the distance, movement.
Yeah, so something had to have hit it really hard and really fast right in the middle to break it there, to not break these smaller pieces that are supporting it at either end.
Yeah, that had to have been,
Yeah.
like a thrust and not a hang, you know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? 'Cause
something
if
hard
they'd
and
hung on it
fast.
for any amount of time,
What the heck was
top
that?
probably-
Did you see that?
Sam's been checking it out.
What the heck is it? There's something taken off right there. Did you see that?
Yeah.
To understand what happened next, we turn to Barb Shoup, a researcher and experiencer who stood on that very trail. "I was right here when it happened," she explains, gesturing toward the fallen timber. "That log wasn't down then. I looked straight across, and that's when I saw it. A black head popped up. No neck, triangular, solid black. He turned and ran, all arms, legs, and hair." Barb describes how her friend Sam briefly blocked her view, but she saw enough. The creature sprinted across the clearing, its dark frame vanishing in seconds. Later, when they returned to the spot, they discovered its tracks had gone down into a debris pile, disappearing into a maze of fallen trees.
I was standing right here when it happened. This wasn't here then. This has since fallen. We were discussing this log right there. I looked right straight through across from over here, and I saw this black head pop up. He was about so high, triangular shape. There was no neck. He was solid black. He turned and ran that way. He was all arms and legs and hair.
Back with Eric Bard, the scientist leans in closer to the screen. "I'm looking at where this vertically downward movement took place," he explains. "I'm checking whether the branches in the foreground were affected. If anything was drawn in, I don't see that. Which means whatever force caused this was local, contained, and very strong." For Barb, the experience was more than just seeing a figure. It was a revelation. You get older, move into the woods, and you think nothing's really there. You've been raised to believe they're not real. But one day, you discover they are. That day, I saw a black head pop up and run. What the camera picked up looked like something out of a Predator movie. I was shocked. We put it on a bigger screen, and that's when I realized this was something my camera shouldn't have been able to capture. But it did.
You know, what I'm looking at is in the region where this movement, this vertically downward movement is taking place, I'm looking to see whether there are any effects on the stuff in the foreground, right? You know how there's that hanging, that brown branch. And so that's the first place my attention is drawn, is to see whether the stuff in the foreground is somehow drawn into the effect. And I don't see that.
For Barb, this was life-altering. Until then, she had rationalized away other strange moments. Vegetation moving as if pressed by an invisible force. Sasquatch vanishing into thin air. Sensations of being watched with no visible source. But now, with this video, she could no longer deny it. "This was the cloaker," she says. "I had it on film." And once you see that, once you know what your eyes and your camera both witnessed, everything changes. The implications go beyond the idea of a simple flesh-and-blood creature. "I struggled with it," Barb admits. "Even now, when something happens, your mind wants to rationalize. You want to cling to what you were taught was normal. But these experiences teach you lessons. Not just that Sasquatch exists, but that Sasquatch can do this, and maybe even more."
That was really life-altering for me. because up until that point, I didn't believe in the woo, not like I do now. You know, I had seen Sasquatch vanish into thin air and I had rationalized it. I had seen vegetation being mowed over by something that wasn't there and I rationalized it.
Back to Eric Bard. His tone is analytical, but there's an undercurrent of unease. I could sit here and scrub this footage back and forth for hours, he says. It's troubling and fascinating at the same time. I haven't seen anything like this in the context of Bigfoot before, because this implies something far beyond a hairy creature skulking around in the woods. For Bard, the footage challenges the very framework of Bigfoot research. At this point, I no longer look at the Bigfoot image as the exclusive way this phenomenon manifests. The figure, the hairy giant, maybe that's just one avatar, one mask. Whatever this is, it seems capable of much more.
I could just sit here and scrub this back and forth for an hour. This thing that you've shown me here on this tablet is kind of troubling and interesting at the same time. I haven't seen anything like this in the context of Bigfoot.
The September 2014 encounter north of Mount Rainier is remembered not just because witnesses saw a figure, but because the evidence forced even hardened researchers to consider possibilities they once dismissed. Possibilities of cloaking, of energy, of entities moving in and out of visibility, like something out of science fiction, but grounded in testimony, video, and first-hand experience. Barb sums it up best. They're really out there, not far away, closer than we think. And they're capable of more than we've ever imagined. In the shadow of Mount Rainier, the forest still holds its secrets. The log that broke that day is gone, but the questions remain. And for those who were there, September 11th, 2014 will always mark the day when the line between the seen and unseen blurred, and Bigfoot was revealed as something stranger than anyone had dared to believe. In southeastern Massachusetts, there's a place unlike any other in America. Spanning nearly 200 square miles, it has earned a reputation as one of the strangest patches of land in the country, a place where ghosts are seen, UFOs streak silently across the night sky. Ancient stone carvings appear deep in the woods, and, most famously, where Bigfoot is said to roam. This is the Bridgewater Triangle. Our guide into this mystery isn't a researcher or a paranormal investigator. He's a local man, an elder, a lifelong resident of the South Shore, and a man who has learned to respect what walks in the forest. He remembers the first time it happened. He was sitting on his porch late one evening when he heard something, muffled chatter, like distant voices. He leaned forward, straining to hear, and then came a sound that made the hair on his neck stand on end, a loud, guttural double whoop. It wasn't an owl. It wasn't anything he recognized. It was something else. A few days later, he heard a sharp, crisp knock from the woods, just one, loud and deliberate, like someone slamming a bat against a tree. He'd always had an open mind about Bigfoot, but now he had a reason to pay attention.
Massachusetts in the South Shore. I was sitting out front on my porch and I heard some chatter. It sounded like muffled talking, and by the time I could kind of put my ears to it, I had a...
From that point on, he became more watchful, hiking, exploring, documenting what he found. Strange tree structures, X shapes woven together, branches bent and locked in ways nature couldn't have done. One winter, he even found a large barefoot track in the snow, complete with strange, wide toes. He filed a report with the BFRO. Investigator Dave came out, looked around, and said something that chilled him. Looks like a nursery.
I heard a very crisp, clear knock. So I thought that was very strange that there would be a knock out there. Who would do that? And I knew that Bigfoot do things like that. I was always had an open mind about Bigfoot, figured they probably existed.
It made him wonder if there were juveniles in the area, a family group. The more time he spent in those woods, the more convinced he became. He would get responses, first 2 wood knocks, then later 3, as if something was signaling back. One evening, just as the sun dipped below the trees, he crouched down near the grass line and heard pacing. Something big was walking back and forth in the woods. Then came a series of rapid, violent cracks, 5 heavy knocks in a row. Bang, 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 bang. I knew it was angry, he said. So I stood up, told it I was sorry, and walked the long way out so it could see me leave.
So, and I found footprints that were smaller than mine, but, you know, in the snow, barefoot, with weird toes, things like that, you know. So I thought that was, you know, they knew what they were talking about, because fast forward a few years later and things like that happened.
This wasn't about chasing Bigfoot. For him, it was about respect. And then, years later, he had another encounter, one of his most terrifying. His car broke down late at night, forcing him to walk home along a lonely road in the dead of night. The fog was thick. The graveyards from the 1700s looked like ghostly silhouettes, and only one car passed him in nearly 2 hours. Almost home, he heard it again, the muttering, the same strange chatter from years before. Then, another double whoop, loud and close, just inside the tree line. It followed me, he said, stayed in the woods beside me until I reached a property with a house. Then it stopped.
The second time I had double whoops was a few years later. My car broke down right as I was leaving work, and there was only one other person pulling away, and I got them, flagged them down and asked them for a ride home. And they said they would give me a ride most of the way and drop me off the end of the road.
He admits it was terrifying, but also thrilling. Bridgewater's history is filled with similar stories. Dr. David Brake, a local veterinarian, recalls what is perhaps the most legendary case of all. One from the early 1970s, when 2 police officers parked in their cruiser near Hockomock Swamp felt their car being physically lifted off the ground. They turned around, Brake says, and saw a large bipedal creature running into the woods.
I think the most quintessential Bridgewater Triangle Hockomock Swamp area story relates to the early 1970s when 2 police officers were sitting in their car relaxing one evening, and all of a sudden they felt the back of their car being picked up and dropped back down.
Researcher Alexander Petikov has studied the triangle for years and calls this police cruiser story one of the most compelling. This was the 1960s, he explains. Those cars were solid metal, extremely heavy. The idea that a prankster in a gorilla suit could lift the back end of a police cruiser is almost impossible, and yet the officers swore it happened. Petikov points out that there was a rash of sightings at the time. Chickens missing from farms, shadowy figures seen crossing roads, and strange upright bear-like creatures reported near the swamp. There was hysteria, he says, but this one stands out because of the physicality. Something touched that car.
So there was one particular police cruiser had been stationed at the edge of kind of this dead-end road near this woman's property, kind of backed in the Hockomock Swamp, and this officer, I guess, was just kind of hanging out, you know, probably just bored, sitting there hoping something happened, or I don't exactly know, but he was basically just on patrol, right, just sitting in his car.
Between the testimonies of locals, investigators, and police, the Bridgewater Triangle seems to be more than just a hotspot for strange stories. It feels alive. Our witness sums it up best. For me, it was always about respect. I didn't want to anger them. I just wanted to share the woods. And maybe that's the key to the Bridgewater Triangle. Whether it's Bigfoot, spirits, or something else entirely, those who spend time there learn quickly. You are not alone. Some encounters are so powerful that they change how you see the land forever. For Charles, a lifelong outdoorsman from southeast Oklahoma, one evening in the woods turned a simple turkey hunt into a story he still struggles to put into words. Cliff Barackman, investigator and Bigfoot expert, traveled to meet Charles face-to-face at his workplace. Charles wanted to tell the story in person and take Cliff back to the exact spot where it happened.
The Bigfoot stuff is here, and that makes people hoax. I think it's the exact opposite. I think Bigfoots are here, and therefore they've become part of the culture, and then you get stores like this that have Bigfoot stuff.
And there's been a lot of sightings around here, too, because they're here.
So today we're going to go check out the location where we actually saw this thing?
Right.
All right, what do we expect to see out there?
Hopefully we'll see that big Tom.
Charles has been hunting these woods his entire life. Born and raised in southeast Oklahoma, he knows every ridge, every ravine, every hollow. For 4 years, he had been tracking a single wild tom, a bird so elusive, it became almost legendary to him. He hunted every morning, every evening, with the patience of someone who respects the animal he's after.
I'm on my way to meet up with Charles at his work. Charles was out turkey hunting, going after this one particular tom. He chased this bird for 4 years until one day he stumbled across a Sasquatch. It scared the heck out of him, and he's never gone back after that bird. He told me he works at a small gift shop right on the edge of town. I'm going to go there, pick him up, and we're going to travel to the location together. Whoa. My mom's head would explode if she came in.
Standing in front of his old turkey blind, Charles's voice grows quieter. That's where I sat every morning and every evening, he says. I hunted that one particular bird for 4 years. I wanted him badly. Then came the day that changed everything. One evening, as Charles sat waiting for the tom, he heard a ruckus down in the ravine. At first, he thought it might be deer, maybe even the turkey he'd been chasing. But when he peered down, what he saw froze him in place. A figure, massive, upright. It was huge, Charles says. I ran right past my turkey blind, past my decoys. Never been back since. That blind is still there, exactly as I left it that day. Whatever that thing was, this is its ridge now.
This one particular evening, I heard this ruckus. I looked down there in the ravine, and that's when I seen the creature. And it was huge. Turkey blind, turkey decoys. I ran right past it, never been back.
And which is why the blind is still there, just sitting there.
Exactly.
Charles has never tried to hunt there again. I decided that turkey can have it, he says with a nervous laugh. Because I think there's a bigger boy in town than that turkey. Cliff suggests they return to the exact spot together to recreate the encounter. Charles agrees, though he admits it's his first time back since that evening. Cliff hands him a walkie-talkie, then heads down into the ravine to stand where Charles saw the creature. The air is heavy with tension as Cliff positions himself and Charles watches from the blind. They're trying to estimate the height of the figure Charles saw. Based on the surrounding trees and terrain, it must have been enormous, towering over the undergrowth. Cliff notes that this ridge could be an ideal feeding area, a place where a Sasquatch might forage or hunt. The idea seems to confirm what Charles had felt all along, that he had stumbled into something's territory that evening. I had my gun that day, Charles says, but after what I saw, I wouldn't shoot. Not with a gun, anyway. These days, I'd shoot that bird with a camera. That tom's majestic. And that thing I saw, that was something even bigger. Something that belongs here.
About right there.
Okay, very good.
That's a little over 7 feet, probably right at 7 or 7'2" or something.
You said it was leaning down like this and came up and kind of looked at you like that?
That was perfect. That's exactly what it did.
Yeah, if this thing was
Bending over, doing stuff on the ground. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if he was foraging for grubs, pulling up some edible plants, maybe even getting some water or there's walnuts on the ground. There's a lot of food going on here. All right, man, I'm going to come back.
For Charles, the encounter was more than just a scare. It was a turning point. It changed how he views the wilderness, and it changed his place within it. He still hunts, still loves the land, but there's a section of ridge he won't set foot on again. And as Cliff and Charles wrap up their recreation, you can almost feel why. The air is thick, the ravine quiet, as if holding its breath, as though the bigger boy in town might still be nearby, watching. The Appalachian Trail is legendary. Stretching more than 2,000 miles across the eastern United States, it's known not only for its breathtaking beauty, but also for its long, dark history of disappearances, strange encounters, and even cryptid sightings. And in one particularly notorious stretch, a hiker named Hike Slam, alongside his wife, Courtney, decided to film an exploration for his YouTube channel. What they captured there may be one of the eeriest Appalachian videos yet. This section of the trail already carries a grim reputation. Locals remember it as the place where 4-year-old Ottie Klein Powell went missing in November of 1891. After straying from Tower Hill Schoolhouse, the boy's body was discovered months later on April 5, 1892, a full 7 miles away. The story haunts the Appalachian community to this day, and the ground where it happened is whispered to carry an energy of sorrow, and sometimes something darker. As the couple walked the trail during the daytime, the woods carried a heavy silence. The deeper they went, the stranger it became. Hike Slam's camera picked up a series of bizarre discoveries scattered almost deliberately across the area.
About 50 feet off the top of Bluff Mountain is this little memorial here. So it says, "This is the exact spot little Ottie Klein Powell's body was found April 5th, 1891, after straying from Tower Hill Schoolhouse, November 9th, a distance of 7 miles, age 4 years, 11 months.
First was an old oil bottle tossed on the ground. Across its surface, written in permanent marker, were notes, ramblings that didn't seem to make sense, like someone trying to leave behind a message but unable to form it clearly. Then came a rock, etched with writing. The words looked like a warning, though the meaning wasn't clear. A few steps away, another rock, this one also bearing crude handwriting. When the video slows, you can see more scrawled messages, each one unsettling, each one placed with intent. And then, something worse. The body of a dead duck, left deliberately beside the writings. A chilling offering, or perhaps some kind of ritual. It raised the same question every viewer had: who would do this?
The weirdness continues. And there's a dead duck here.
As the couple pressed on, they discovered a long note, written out in messy, manic lettering. The words were almost too chaotic to follow, but they carried a tone of obsession, anger, maybe even warning. Just as Hike Slam leaned closer to read, the air shifted. From somewhere nearby came the sound of fire crackling. Not the distant pop of branches or the hiss of wind, an unmistakable sound of flames alive in the woods. But when he turned his camera toward the source, there was no campfire in sight.
Very long note. And it looks like it was just put here because it's not wet. That duck is fairly recently. All right. Kind of creepy.
That's when the weight of the place truly settled in. The writings, the strange offerings, the sound of fire, all of it building toward a single realization. They weren't alone out there. Despite all of this, Hike Slam announced he would be spending the night in that very spot, alone with only his wife, the trees, and whatever, or whoever, was lurking nearby. His bravery is one thing, but some might call it recklessness. Because when you add together the tragic history, the warning scrawled on stone, the dead animal left behind, and the phantom sound of fire, one thing is clear: this wasn't just a trail. This was a place marked. So who was leaving those messages? Was it a person living feral in the woods? A cult? Or was it something far older, tied to the trail's haunted history? The truth remains hidden in the Appalachian shadows. But one thing's for certain: few would dare sleep where Hike Slam and Courtney chose to stay. The YouTube channel, The Hoggett Project is run by a solo camper who thrives on pushing himself into the unknown. His videos often document early morning treks into wild and remote landscapes, where silence is his only companion. But in one particular outing, what started as an ordinary exploration became one of the most unsettling experiences he's ever captured on film. It was still dark when he set off, hiking miles into the wilderness to reach a clearing 3 miles from the trailhead. As the faint light of dawn crept through the trees, the world around him grew eerily quiet. The forest, normally alive with the chatter of birds and rustling leaves, felt hushed, as if it was holding its breath.
Following behind some horses or something, because I've been smelling animal. Oh, you heard that, right?
Then came the sound. Footsteps. Not his own, not the echo of boots on the trail, but heavy, deliberate movements in the brush off to his left. He froze instantly. Every instinct told him he was no longer alone. Slowly, cautiously, he turned his head toward the sound. His breathing quickened as he scanned the tree line. Nothing. He forced himself to walk forward, his steps measured, eyes darting between the trees. Then he lowered himself into a crouch, letting the brush conceal him. And that's when he saw it. A silhouette, tall, broad shoulders, a sunken head, and a frame far too large to be an ordinary person. Just beyond the tree line, it loomed. The figure didn't move aggressively. It didn't charge. It simply stood, watching, as though it had no business with him but every reason to be there. The moment burned into his mind. But strangely, when he reviewed his footage later, the figure wasn't there. Frame by frame, he scrubbed through the video, desperate to find proof. And while the exact silhouette he remembered was missing, something else surfaced. Strange images, shadows of figures, distorted shapes lurking in the background, things that didn't quite fit with the rest of the environment.
Oh, you heard that, right?
What he saw that morning was impossible to dismiss. He considered explanations. Could it have been another hiker? But why would someone else be crouched deep in the brush, this far from the trailhead, before sunrise? Could it have been a bear? Black bears do roam this region, but bears don't stand tall on 2 legs, and they certainly don't cast a human-like outline. He even wondered if it could have been a homeless person living off-grid in the forest. But that explanation felt thin. What stuck with him most was the clarity of the sighting. It wasn't a trick of the light. Dawn was already brightening the sky. This wasn't a flickering shadow or an illusion. He was certain that what he saw was alive, solid, and real.
I mean, it's bright out here, and it was almost like it was a pure shadow that I was watching. Could have been a black bear. This is a wild place, but it was trying to be stealthy walking through the woods. But yeah, it could just be a homeless person, huh?
In the end, he chose to continue his hike, though the unease lingered. The forest felt heavier, darker, as if the trees themselves were watching. When he finally returned home, he left his viewers with a chilling message. Solo camping can be thrilling, but it can also be fatal. Out there, miles from safety.
Okay, it's only 6:48. If this wasn't so hilly, that would be like kind of my ideal layout.
There are things in the wilderness that you may not be prepared for. If you've got people waiting for you back home, think twice. No, think thrice, before heading into the wild alone. For most bushcrafters and wild campers, there's always that creeping thought in the back of the mind. What if someone or something is out there in the dark watching? For the YouTuber behind Swamp Valley, that nightmare came to life on a night he set out to film a simple wild camping trip with 2 of his friends. The plan was innocent enough. A night under the stars, a fire, and some laughs, all captured on camera for his channel. But as darkness thickened, he began to feel something was wrong. Shadows moved too easily. The silence of the forest carried weight. The unsettling feeling grew until he was sure he was being followed. At first he picked up his pace, brushing it off as nerves. But the truth revealed itself in the most terrifying way. Out of nowhere, an unknown man lunged from the darkness and threw liquid toward him. Shocked, choking on fear, the camper bolted into the woods, his camera trembling as he ran. But his nightmare wasn't over.
Oh, Jesus!
Behind him, the figure chased relentlessly, wielding a fire stick that cut through the night. Gasping for air, sickened by the fumes, the camper stumbled, desperate to find water, a river, any escape. But the pursuer caught up, beating him savagely with a stick. The footage is raw, chaotic, and horrifying to watch. Viewers still argue whether the encounter was staged, or whether Swamp Valley genuinely captured one of the most disturbing attacks ever seen in a camping video. Scripted or not, the terror on his face and the brutality of the chase are undeniable. Real or fake, one truth remains: this was every camper's worst fear, dragged from imagination into reality. Solo camping can be peaceful, but it can also turn into a nightmare in an instant. The YouTuber known as Under the Weather learned this the hard way when what began as a calm night in the woods spiraled into one of the most tense experiences of his life. He set up camp, found a quiet spot, and as the sun set, he cooked himself a simple meal. First, he made a warm milk drink in his saucepan, though he accidentally spilled it inside the tent. Later, he grilled a few chicken wings over the fire, ate, and settled in for the night. It seemed like a normal solo trip, until 3 a.m. arrived. He woke suddenly to the sound of laughter. Not cheerful laughter, but something eerie, distant, almost mocking. Then came the grunting, deep, guttural, and close enough to chill his blood.
I've got a knife in here.
Half asleep, he muttered into the darkness, calling out, "Hello?" But the noises didn't stop. Instead, the grunts grew louder, heavier, more menacing. Clutching a knife in his trembling hands, he whispered on camera, "I've got a knife in here." His face told the whole story, pure fear. Minutes dragged like hours as he waited, heart pounding, praying it would pass. Finally, with all his courage, he unzipped the tent and looked outside. Nothing. No figures. No eyes reflecting in the firelight. Just silence.
Did that noise again. It sounds like somebody laughing outside, but I have no idea. Huh, unless it's the kelpies. Oh. Hello?
Still shaken, he lay back down, knife gripped tight against his chest. The rest of the night stretched painfully slow, every sound magnified. At dawn, he emerged alive, but the fear never left his voice as he admitted, it was the tensest night of his life. For him, that 3 a.m. grunting was more terrifying than any wild animal. Some encounters in the wild unfold slowly, with tension building second by second. Others happen so fast they feel like a gunshot, and this was one of them. On a wildlife safari, a couple found themselves in the middle of a heated argument. Frustrated, the woman opened her car door and stepped outside, ignoring the danger of where she was. She walked around to the other side of the vehicle, still caught up in the quarrel. But in that split second, the wilderness reminded her of its unforgiving rules. From behind, a massive tiger exploded out of the brush. Its speed was unreal, its intent unmistakable. Before anyone could react, the predator lunged and seized her, dragging her into the trees with terrifying power. Screams erupted as her husband leapt out of the car and bolted after them, his desperation no match for the strength of the tiger. The chaos left everyone in shock. The moment, caught on video, was as sudden as it was horrifying. A fatal mistake played out in mere seconds. Later, the woman's family attempted to sue the park, claiming the rules had not been made clear. But every visitor knows, inside an enclosure with tigers, the car is your only shield. The footage remains one of the most chilling reminders of safari dangers. One step outside the vehicle turned into a life-or-death encounter. What should have been an unforgettable trip to see wild animals ended in tragedy. An instant of carelessness leading to irreversible horror. Two friends set out one cold, dark night to chase local rumors about strange activity in the forest. Amateurs at best, with no gear and no real safety plan, they thought it would be a fun adventure. What they didn't know was that the forest was already waiting for them. The deeper they walked, the more unsettling things became. First, they spotted a mask lying on the ground. Then, not even a minute later, another mask appeared, this one duct-taped to a tree branch, swaying in the cold air. Their camera caught it all. "What is that? Did you see?" the cameraman whispered nervously. And then came the real shock. From the shadows, a figure in a mask burst forward, charging straight at them. Heartbeats skyrocketed. The two panicked, stumbling over roots and branches as they sprinted blindly through the dark.
Oh,
The sound of pursuit pounding behind them. They had come to investigate, but it felt like they had walked into someone's trap, and this wasn't even their first terrifying encounter. In a previous investigation, their camera captured what looked like the infamous rake, a pale, inhuman figure. That night, too, they heard screams echoing from the forest, chilling and sharp. Determined, they pushed forward.
all right, so we're just filming over there. We got the. Oh, I almost fell. We're gonna check that scream out. Let's see. Looks like you can see everything. It's gonna be like we go out here and we see one of those.
Until the sound erupted again, this time directly ahead. In pure panic, they turned and bolted, the heavy silence of the woods broken only by their own frantic breathing. By some miracle, they made it out alive. But both times the message was clear. When you go chasing horror in the woods, sometimes horror chases back. In the vast and silent wilderness of Scandinavia, nature often holds surprises that even the most seasoned explorers don't see coming. Vahid Kulsberg, an experienced outdoorsman, was out hiking with his loyal dog when his camera captured something few ever want to experience firsthand: a bear charge. It begins innocently enough. The air is calm, filled with the distant calls of birds and the rustle of trees in the wind. Vahid is relaxed, speaking to his dog, when suddenly movement catches his eye.
Come into hit! Come into hit! Da. Eh. Don't come here. Come into hit. Nay.
The tension spikes. His voice trembles between urgency and disbelief as he realizes something is moving. Through the trees, a shadow stirs, growing larger with every second. What seemed like a fleeting glimpse of wildlife quickly transforms into something far more dangerous. A brown bear, young but powerful, is barreling toward them. The camera shakes as Vahid yells desperately, "Don't come here! Go away!"
Nej! Kom inte hit! Kom inte hit! Nej, 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 nej! Nej, nej! Gå bort! Gå bort! Kom inte hit! Kom inte hit!
The chaos is undeniable as the branches snap, gravel shifts, and the unmistakable charge of an animal fills the space. Vahid hurls rocks and shouts, hoping to scare the bear before it closes the gap. The bear stops, confused by the noises and stones. It's only then that Vahid realizes it's a cub, perhaps only a year or two old, curious but reckless. His voice softens slightly as adrenaline fades. It was a young cub, not this year, maybe 1-2 years old. We don't need it here. But relief doesn't erase the reality of the encounter. Bears leave claw marks etched deep into tree trunks, their droppings scattered along the trail, a clear warning that this wilderness is their home. The real danger isn't just the cub, but what might follow and what could have happened if it hadn't stopped. If the mother bear had been nearby, this story could have ended very differently.
Seen bears before, but it's first time one charged on us like this. If it wasn't for this steep hill here.
Soon, the bear has fled back down the slope, but the weight of what just happened lingers. Vahid admits it's the first time a bear has truly charged at him, and if it weren't for the steep hill slowing the animal down, neither he nor his dog may have escaped unscathed. Encounters like this remind us that the wilderness is raw, unpredictable, and unforgiving. One wrong move, one step too close, and the balance between man and nature can shift in an instant. All right, folks, that's it for today. Real encounters caught on camera that blur the line between nature and nightmare. From the unsettling Wendigo sighting to the shadow of Bigfoot caught by a drone, and even the raw intensity of a bear charging out of nowhere. Each of these moments reminds us how there is so much we don't know about the wild. What do you think? Were these just tricks, frauds, or just animals we don't know of, or undeniable proof of something stranger roaming out there? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear your theories. Until next time, remember, the wilderness holds secrets we have just begun discovering. The forest was quiet, too quiet. A stillness hung in the air, broken only by the crunch of boots against soft earth. Mark, better known as Colorado Bigfoot, had been chasing shadows for years, but on this day something felt different. He wasn't just out searching, he was being led. At the base of a ridge, he stopped. A tree shifted, not from the wind, but from something pressing against it. "He's right here," Mark whispered, breath caught in his throat.
This tree moves. He's right here. You can see where he was. This tree just got moved and pushed into this. Look, he made all the tracks and everything.
The tree moved again. Branches snapped. And then the prints. Fresh, deep, too large for anything else. He followed the trail. Broken branches leaned like markers. The earth showed signs of heavy weight pressing down. Footprints with toes clear as day. Stones shifted beside them, scat fresh along the path. Something big had passed through. Something that knew he was close.
There's a footprint with toes right there, with a rock next to it. Oh yeah, he's coming in here. Look, there's poop. Nice pile of poop. And they're going right through there all the time. It's all big, flat, see? No game, all big, flat stuff.
The deeper he walked, the stranger it became. A boulder loomed ahead, massive and out of place, standing alone like it had been set there by hands not human. Around it, the ground was trampled, beaten flat, as if something large circled it again and again. "They come out right here," he said softly, his camera catching the quartz face of the rock. I've even seen faces looking straight from inside. It wasn't just rock, it was a doorway. Strange structures appeared next. Sticks crossed into perfect X's, placed against boulders and trees. A trident of branches leaned nearby, unmistakable, deliberate.
Anything too unusual here, I do have an X. The closest sticks to the boulder make an X. X marks the spot. This is it right here. Here, watch. Oh, there's a bone. One bone. Come on, it's one bone like always. Anybody home?
He had filmed hundreds of these before, but this spot, this one felt alive, as if eyes were on him from every angle. A noise stirred behind him. Branches rustled low. His breath quickened. "They're right with me," he whispered, not daring to turn. Then came the sound again, closer this time, deliberate, like something pacing his every step. Mark scanned the slope. The hill rose steep, sharper than the camera showed, nearly vertical in places. At the top, silence. But instinct told him someone was watching. Maybe more than one. He whistled into the trees, a signal he used often. "I'm not sneaking, I'm not hiding," he said, but the forest gave no reply, only the steady tension of something just beyond sight. And then, the seat. Grass packed flat, earth pressed down smooth.
Oh, he was just sitting right there. This is all a seat. Look at the grass. It's completely packed into the... He was sitting right there. You know it was him because of that. Not to mention what else I just showed you. Right there is the seat. Oh, there's another one.
A perfect spot where something heavy had crouched. Another nearby, then another. They had been sitting there, waiting, watching, structures stacked higher the further he walked. Double X's. Leaners wedged between stones in ways nature could never manage. A wall built from sticks, the ground around it churned with footprints. "This is one of the most amazing finds I've ever had," he breathed. Yet the feeling only grew heavier, as if stepping too far might break an unspoken boundary. His camera blurred and stuttered, the focus pulling strangely toward the boulder, locking onto shadows and shapes it mistook for faces. "They're messing with the tech," he muttered. "I know it." Finally, he stopped. The forest pressed close, alive with signs but silent as stone. Around him, X's, tridents, footprints, seats, walls. Behind him, the steady weight of eyes. And then he asked the question we all think but never say out loud. If they can be this close, this clear, why haven't they stepped out? Maybe it isn't about proof. Maybe it's about trust. Or maybe some doors are never meant to open. From the shadows of Salt Fork State Park to the hidden nests high in remote ridges, this investigation has taken us deep into a world where the line between legend and reality blurs. We've examined the evidence, heard from those who've seen the impossible, and challenged the theories that try to explain it all away. In the end, whether you believe in Bigfoot or not, one thing is certain. These forests still hold secrets. And sometimes, those secrets watch us back. If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because this story is far from over.